Hello, this is part 2 of the video for Lab 9 on JavaScript user-defined functions. We left off talking about this time elapsed function and finished that up. Now I'm going to talk about task 2, the birthday wisher, which is just another user-defined custom function. Again, we're going to attach it to a button so that the page is more responsive, that it doesn't just run all the code at the start when we load the page. It has some code that we save for later, and then the user can run that code by clicking a button. So birthdaywisher.html file, open it and look at it. I have it open here in Atom. It is the birthdaywisher.html right here. And so we have a header up here and a body here. And I'm looking, right, whenever I open these HTML files, I'm looking for ID equals values, because those are going to be the key points where my JavaScript can either extract information or insert information into the page. So I have an input, which is a text input with the birth month ID, and an input, which is a text input with the birthday ID. Since those are inputs, I'm probably going to be extracting information from them. Here's another input with a button, and it has an onClick. So it's a button that will trigger a JavaScript function when clicked. And look at this, wish happy birthday. So this already tells me what is the name of the function I'm going to be defining. And then I have a today ID and a results ID down here. Not sure what those are used for, but we'll figure it out as we go along. The lab says to start a new file named birthdaywisher.js. Why should the file be named that? Well, over here in the HTML, we see here that it's trying to load a birthdaywisher.js script. If I go to the page that I have open here, the birthday wisher, and refresh that, and I open up the console, see this message? Loading failed for the script with source, users, peopleheart desktop, CS115, lab09, birthdaywisher.js. Right now, I'm in Firefox right now. The message may be slightly different in Chrome, but this warning is important. It's telling me, hey, your HTML page said to load this JavaScript file, but I did not find that file or wasn't able to locate it. And so if you have this situation, that's the first thing you need to fix. Obviously, we have this situation now because we haven't created the file yet. So let's go over here to Atom. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to immediately save it. And I'm going to title it birthdaywisher.js, and make sure it's saved in the lab09 directory alongside birthdaywisher.html. That's good. Save that. All right. So what should be in this JavaScript file? Well, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go back to my time elapsed from the previous video, and we want a function definition. So I'm going to copy and paste, and I'm going to call it, what was the name? Okay, go over here to the HTML. I'm going to actually copy paste so I don't get this name wrong or misspell it. All right. Wish happy birthday is my function. It has an opening and closing curly braces, so that's where I'm going to write my code. And every function, we want to have a comment that says what it is. So this function is determines from the page, from the inputs on the page, whoops, whether today is the user's, what happened? Hang on. Birthday, sorry about that. My editor thinks I'm typing code and I'm just typing a comment here. Today is the user's birthday and displays a message about that. All right, so that is what we want this function to do. How do we do it? So let me go back to the instructions. And I have some steps here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these steps, copy them, go over to my code file, and paste them, and turn them into comments. Because these steps describe exactly what's going to happen in this file. And it's always nice for your code to have comments that say what it's doing. So this is like a 2-for-1 freebie where the instructions told me what I was supposed to do. I can immediately turn those around into comments that tell myself and anybody else reading this code, hey, here's what this code is doing. Those are like pretty far indented. Maybe I'll unindent them a little bit. Okay. So function wish happy birthday. The first thing it needs to do is determine the current month and day of the month. Let's start there. So this is another date thing that we're doing, right? We can use that date object to do that. So var now equals new date, capital D. right, gets us a date object representing the current time, day, month, year, minute, hour, second, whatever. What we're going to do with that, so determine the current month and day of the month. I'm going to make some variables for that. Var month equals now.getMonth. And var date equals now.getDate. And if you don't remember these, I sometimes don't, like, is it get day or get date or what is it? You can guess and check. You can try something and see if it's correct. Or you can just go ahead and Google like JavaScript, date object, get month. And it might tell you something interesting about it. So, and then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try to do this function step by step. I'm not going to try to do it all at once. And in between, I'm going to check that things are working up to that point using the console. So I'm going to say console.log the month and the date. And I just want to see, are these things correct? That will also tell me if I see a message in the console that this function is actually working when I click the button. If I don't, then I have other questions to answer first. So save this, go back over here, go to my birthday wisher. I can keep the console open when I reload. Okay, no error, that's good, the script loaded. 412, so if I to wish or not, it prints in the console 3-7. Okay, so good, it printed something in the console. If I click it, you'll see this number go up because it's copies of the same message. If I go back over here, so the month is the get month, the date is the get date. The month was 3 and the date was 7. Today is April the 7th. So I like the date. I'm unhappy about the month being 3 when I think it should be 4. Let's go ahead and Google JavaScript date object get month. See if we can find some information about this, right? Okay, here's a W3 resource. Oh, that's actually, this might be a good one, but I'm more used to the W3 schools or the MDN results. So I'm going to go with W3 schools. Okay, definition and usage returns the month. From 0 to 11. It says right there, right? So that's why we got a 3, because 0 would be January, so April is going to be 3. Since I don't really like that being the case, I'm just going to immediately add 1 before I even store it in my variable. So that the value stored in this variable from the very start is going to be a human 1 to 12 month instead of a computer 0 to 11 month. I'm going to save that and go over here and refresh the page. Click the button. 4-7. Okay, good. That seems like I'm getting the current day and month correctly in these variables. Now I'm going to go on to the next step. So, read from the web page the user's input regarding their birth month and day. So over here we have this birth month ID and birth day ID, right? And we could also go over here and inspect and say, hey, this element, what are you, right? And it says, hey, I'm an input ID equals birth month ID. So those are the 2 ways that we can figure out the ID we need to use. I'm going to go ahead and go back over here to the HTML code. I'm going to take the birth month ID, just the ID part. I'm going to copy that, right, so I don't make any typos. I'm going to say the user month is the document.getElement by ID. Paste that. All right, that's the birth month ID. I'm going to get that thing, I'm going to say .value. So that's the input element. I want the value of that input element. Unlike other elements on your page, input elements do not have an inner HTML because they don't have HTML code inside them. And in fact, the thing that the user enters isn't part of the HTML code anywhere at all, right? So we use .value to get that. And I'm immediately also going to say parse int on that value before I store it in my variable because I want it to be an integer, not a string, not a piece of text, right? And the value of our text input always starts off as text, even if it really is text that represents an integer. So that's going to be the month, and I'm going to do the same thing for the user date. And then again, I'm not going to trust my fingers. I'm going to copy paste this birthday ID here. Okay, and we're going to do a console.log I'm going to put some strings here to differentiate. So this is the current month and day, and this is going to be the user month, user date. All right, so save that, go over here, refresh the page. We have, going back to the console here, nothing. Click the button. Current 4.7, user 4.12, right? 4.12. Looks like it's picking up those values correctly. That's good. So far so good. We have the month and the date of the current day. We have the month and the day from the user. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the next step, which is decide on a different message based on whether today is or is not the user's birthday. Okay, so decide. Decide means we're going to do an if statement, right? We're going to have two possibilities or multiple possibilities, in this case just two. It is your birthday, it's not your birthday. And so I'm going to start with an if, and it's going to have a condition and some text and then an else. And what we're deciding is a different message. So I'm going to actually create a variable, and I'm just going to leave it blank to start with. And then in this if and the else, I'll assign one of two different values to that variable. So I have one variable, two possible values, depending on what the user entered. And then I can use that one variable later in the page to display that message. So how do I know if it's the user's birthday? Well, if the month is the same as equals the user month, and, right, two ampersands, the date is the same as the user date, then I think it's your birthday. And so in that case, I will say message equals happy birthday. Cool. And in the other case, if it's not your birthday, much more common, unfortunately, the message will be, too bad it's not your birthday today. Okay. And we have these two possible messages. One of them is stored in this variable, depending on this if statement. I don't know what's going to happen because I don't know what the user put in the page. We're going to just do a console.log the message to test it, right? Before we move on to the next step. So refresh, run it. Too bad it's not your birthday because 4.7 does not equal 4.12, but if I put 4.7 in here, hey, 4.7, happy birthday. So that looks like it's working, right? And notice that I can sort of change this stuff around and click the button as many times as I want, and the function will run every time I click the button. So this is actually a responsive web page. The user doesn't have to keep refreshing it. They can just manipulate those values, click the button to get a new result. Of course, for now, the results are all in the console. The user can't see them. So let's fix that. That is our last step for this part of the lab. Present that message on the web page itself. So going back to the web page, there's a results ID. That's probably what I want to do. Copy that over here. We're going to say document.get element by ID. Paste that. All right, so that is a results div. And I'm going to say results div .inner HTML is going to be the message. Well, I'll just put the message in there. Notice I could do it this way. I could also do it on one line of code without a variable by just saying this. These two ways of doing it are pretty much the same, unless you need to reuse this variable for some other purpose later. I'm just sort of doing this version to illustrate that you can break this thing with the dots into multiple parts if you want. You can take one part with the dots, so we're taking this part, storing it in a variable, and later reusing that variable with the other part with the dots to do the same thing. So I'm going to leave it like that. All right. I'm hoping that we'll put it in the page. I don't need a console.log to test that code because it should be obvious whether it works from what happens. So run it, 4.11, to wish or not. Ah, look, it appeared in the page like I wanted. It's not your birthday because 4-7 is not equal to 4-11, but if I put this at 7, happy birthday. Okay, that seems like it might be working. Let me try just to be sort of careful for 6. Okay, how about for -15? Well, that's also not my birthday. For 1005. 27, 1005, right? I'm making up weird numbers just to sort of like, can I break this? And so far not. It's only going to tell me it's my birthday when the month is 4 and the day is 7. Happy birthday. Good. Okay, so that is the birthday wisher function. We can keep these console.logs in there. We can get rid of them if we want. They were sort of helping us as scaffolding to constrict it as we go along. The user's never going to see them, but anybody who opens the console might. But I'm just going to keep them there because they're useful sort of back channel information for me. And that's our function wish happy birthday. So again, the whole of this file, birthdaywisher.js, does one thing. It defines a function, right? And that whole function definition has a bunch of instructions in it. But nothing actually happens when we run it other than saving those for later. Then, in the HTML file, we have this onClick property where it matches the name of the function, right? Birthday, or wish happy birthday here, and wish happy birthday up here. That means that when the user clicks that button, this function is triggered. As many times as they click that button, the function will be triggered again, which is sort of the power of functions. I'm going to stop this video here and make a third video for the coffee calculations part of the lab. Thank you for watching up to this point.